Oh, what a day at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It had its high points, and it had its lows, too. It had its moments of great triumph, and it had its moments of trouble. Well, good evening once again. I'm Paul Page with our racing expert, Roger Penske. And Roger, one terrific 500-mile race. I know that it didn't finish quite the way you wanted it, but it was a terrific day.
Well, I just want to congratulate Gordy and Pat Patrick and his whole crew, and I'm sorry about the accident at the beginning of the race, but, you know, that's racing.
The whole month of May, in fact, most of the year, builds up to this moment that ends up in Victory Lane, and when the Borg-Warner Trophy is finally set on the back of a race car. And that scene in Victory Circle in Victory Lane was really something today. A lot of hugging, a lot of kissing. Linda Johncock doing just a little bit of yelling and jumping around, and everybody very excited about it. The car didn't quite make it to the Victory Lane area quite as fast as in past years. They pulled up a little short. Now there you see it as Gordon Johncock pulls for the second time into Victory Lane, and this is his first dry time to pull in there. The last time in 1973, it was a rain-shortened race. Look at the Johncocks. Boy, was she excited about that. And there's Jack McKenzie. He's putting the Borg-Warner Trophy on back of the race car. That is the last time, by the way, that Jack will do that. He retires now, completing 30 years of bringing that trophy into the circle. And Gordon Johncock, a terrific job today. A very, very long afternoon. It started out, sunshine was bright. We were ready to go racing, and then, of course, there were problems, and then about a 48-minute delay. We finally got off to a race. An important point that we ought to make about the entire situation early was that the race did not start until the second time that they moved out for a start. But here was the action late in the day, and we're watching as Gordon Johncock is leading Rick Mears on lap 198. They are approaching now the start-finish line, going through the fourth turn, and when they come onto the main straightaway, it will be Johncock leading Mears with 1 lap to go. The white flag waving. Here comes Rick Mears with his try. Gordon Johncock. Now watch as they come down. Johncock dives across the front of Mears' car. Mears forced very low on the race course. Here comes Johncock. Mears right behind him once again. Mears dropped behind in a little momentum at that point. Roger Penske, did you know whether or not it was won or lost?
Well, obviously, I was amazed how Rick had come back from almost 10 seconds after a slow pit stop we had right near the end, and it was a great run for both these guys, and obviously, Gordy was the guy to win today.
Well, let's go back as we watch this. Let's watch it all the way to the win, because it was a splendid moment, not just for Johncock, but for both drivers. 15 100ths of a second. Look at this interval. Here comes Mears with his try. He darts out and cannot get the job done. But a splendid job, the closest finish in history from the fastest field ever to start the Indianapolis 500. But let's take it back to several hours before that, the beginning of the day at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I imagine, Roger, that when the crowds poured in, you were pretty high about the day. Felt pretty good.
Well, obviously, Paul, I was optimistic, but knowing how this place can grab you, I had to be cautious.
This was before the start of the event. The final preparations being made, each of the teams checking their cars, the speedway properly bedecked, all the ceremonial figures arriving, the pace car pulling into place, the parade of bands, the ceremonies that lead up to the start of the race, and a crowd approaching 400,000 in the grounds. Everybody very excited about that race. There's the parade of celebrities. I don't imagine, Roger, you get to see too much of this part. You're pretty busy at this time, aren't you?
Right now we're concerned about being sure our pits are set up. All of the spares are in the pits, really Just going over the last minute checklist, we even run through a tire stop right side and maybe a 3-tire stop to be sure our fellows are ready. It's like a golfer, I guess, hitting a few balls before the start of an event. But everyone is on a high right now. Obviously, there's only going to be one winner. And when these balloons go off, you know the race is going to be starting.
And then comes that famous command. The command to start engines, and the field clears very rapidly. One car had a bit of trouble. Tom Sneva did not immediately pull away. There goes Kevin Cogan, and Rick Mears is away. The front row is away, but you'll see they're moving around Tom Sneva's car. His engine just simply would not fire. Can you imagine what George Bignotti might have been saying at that moment? The field pulling into alignment, the parade laps, and the field seemed to take absolutely forever to really come into shape. Was there a reason?
Well, I think, Paul, in talking with Rick at the drivers' meeting and the meeting that they had covering the start, Rick was told to run at a steady pace behind the pace car and don't try to speed up and slow down on the start. And actually, when he started, he felt he was a little slow, but he was told not to go fast and then back off like they try to do in a mile track. And maybe they came down a little bit too slow at the start. But basically, everyone's supposed to key off the pole car, and that's Mears said it was his job to bring him down his way, and that's what he did.
Well, let's take a look at that. Tom Sneva did make it into the 500 field, and so they are now ready for the green flag. 2 parade laps are done. The pace lap is now complete, and it is Rick Mears in the pole car bringing them to the line. Now watch very carefully the car in the center. That's Kevin Cogan. And notice how disjointed the alignment is in the field behind there. I don't think Dwayne Sweeney was going to give them the flag anyway. They're coming down slowly. There's no question about that. Andretti pulls forward, and then suddenly this happens. Cogan darts to the right side, darts back to the left, and you see Dale Whittington in the background turns, reason unknown, and causes an accident that involves Roger Mears. So looking very carefully, Andretti comes forward. There is Cogan, and it looked like something may have actually broken in the car. A lot of people said it was the turbo, but I'm not so sure. He takes out Andretti, and now watch back further the yellow car of Dale Whittington, because he'll just suddenly dart to his left. There he goes and turns across the track, and with that maneuver, it is Roger Mears that goes out. So it's Kevin Cogan sliding down to the wall. His car is out, Andretti's machine is out, Dale Whittington's is out, and Roger Mears' car is out. Here's another view of the same thing. He bumps Foyt. Foyt fights to regain control. Andretti just center punches him. Andretti spins around, Cogan against the wall. It's amazing to me that no one was injured as a result of this accident. Speaks again to the magnificent safety record of these race cars. So the red flag came out. The day was over for Kevin Cogan, Andretti, Dale Whittington, and Roger Mears. That's the end of the accident, and then
he didn't even know you were there. He drifted right into you, and he had that car cocked already. He started in first gear. They started way too slow to begin with. But I still had it in second gear.
I was in second gear and rolling. All of a sudden, I just pow on the left.
And all of a sudden, and I knew it. I dove for the inside, because this fucking kid's going to lock wheels.
Well, what did he do? Just turn side and run into him? That's what it felt like.
I didn't turn sideways. He locked me right at the wall like that.
So disappointed I had to just fall to the wayside because of inexperience up there. I had some fears about Cogan being able to really handle that situation on the front row, and obviously shows that he cannot do that yet. He just hasn't got enough strength in his character to be able to cope with a situation such as that. That's all there's to it.
What do you do in a situation like this? Do you and maybe a couple of other veteran drivers talk to Kevin now? Because it looks like he's going to be running near the front all year.
Well, the problem is the man hasn't been very easy to talk to. He seems like he's with a good team and with very good equipment, so his head is just a little bit big. It needs to shrink a little bit, bring down a little modesty in them, and realize that the job is a lot bigger than what I think he is at the moment.
So Mario Andretti obviously very angry with the whole situation. And remember now, the race has not started. The green flag was not given. Now Mario Andretti, not the only one that was angry as a result of that start. Johnny Rutherford was also extremely mad about it.
I blame directly the pace. Mears had us going way too slow. Rathman did his job with the pace car, and Mears should have kept up with him and had the speed a little faster. Everybody was really kind of under the gun, and I'm sure that we were going slow enough that Kogan had his in low gear, and when he stood on the throttle to go with the front row, all hell broke loose because his car broke loose and he started ricocheting off of other guys.
Now, Johnny Rutherford's car was not injured in that particular incident, and he was blaming the slow pace of the run itself. Now, what about Rick Mears? What did he have to say?
Why is it too slow? That's my position. I can start wherever I want to. If I want to stop in the middle and take off, that's my position, right? They follow me. I was on the pole. And we started the same speed at Phoenix the first race. We started the same speed at Atlanta the second race, not too long ago. And it was basically the same pace, so I don't see they've got any gripe. If they can't handle the speed that we take off, then you know what?
It's not only Rick Mears that is having a finger pointed at him because of the slow start. It affected his brother Roger Mears, who, if you notice, the second accident, really unrelated, though related to the first, unrelated in that it wasn't directly caused by it, but they were pulling away, and Dale Whittington cut across the front of Roger Mears, and so now he is out of the race because of that situation. Here's what Roger said.
I mean, anybody behind me had a perfect view of what was going on, and I cannot imagine anybody running into the trash. You know, I had it woed and stopped in plenty of time, and he come over the top of me like the green flag had dropped.
All right, so that's the situation. That's what everybody had to say about it. Roger Penske, they're your drivers. The pole driver is yours. The one that was actually involved in the first accident, Kevin Kogan, is yours. You've looked at the tape. We have it again.
Well, I think, Paul, in looking at the tape, it's difficult for me to really tell what happened. There's a possibility that he might have broken a half shaft because of the acceleration, but I didn't see any smoke coming off the tires where he had lit the tires. Maybe the horsepower and the turbo being lit might have broken a shaft, because the car veered to the right and came back, and actually Mario was ahead, probably up, if you can see here, a half ahead of John Cock, because he came across in front of John Cock, but Mario was up underneath Rick and was collected, so it's unfortunate Mario was up a little bit high. He would have not even been involved in it, so this is a tough situation. I heard Mario's comments, obviously. I heard Johnny's. These fellows have to remember, I remember them when they were driving in the very first days of their career, and you know, we've all had problems. It's a racing accident. The main thing, nobody got hurt. But there you can see Andretti way out of line. He was ahead of his teammate Gordy and also Whittington, but it's just a racing accident. No one will ever know really what happened. I think Kevin learned a lot. It's too bad about Roger Mears, and believe me, I feel bad for Andretti. We wanted to see this be a clean race.
Well, one of the close witnesses to not only that situation, but certainly the closest witness to the victory was Gordon Johncock, and Gordon Johncock and his entire crew is celebrating right now up at one of the hotels in town. And Gordy, it's good to see you this evening, and to see you as a 500-mile race winner finally at 500 miles.
Well, thank you, Paul. I think that's what makes me feel the best about this win. It is a win that we really earned. We ran 500 miles. We led the last part of the race. It wasn't a race where there was one or two or three or four cars faster than me, and they fell out, and I came across to win. It was an exciting finish, and I really feel good about it.
Gordy, let's talk about the start for a second, because you were right there. What was it from your point of view?
Well, sure enough, Paul, I had a ringside seat for it. When Kevin got on it, I think, you know, we were running fairly slow, and when he got on it, the turbo kicked in. The back end of the car got a little bit sideways. He tried to correct it. He really didn't have any room. You know, the front straightaway is so narrow. I feel if he'd have been at a place like Ontario or Pocono maybe, or something like that, where we don't have to run so close together, that he might have been able to correct the car. but he just didn't have any room to correct the car, and I think he bumped A.J. to his right, and then he swung back across the track, and Mario hit him.
Gordy, as you're live with us now, you're saying that you didn't see, you were right behind him, but you didn't see anything break on Cogan's car.
No, I didn't. You know, I'm not saying it didn't, but I think the car just broke loose with him. He might have had it in low gear. I don't know for sure what gear he had it in. Even if he had it in second gear, he had a lot of torque. You know, and when the turbo kicked in, I know it's come close to happen to me before. At Phoenix one time, I got sideways coming down the front straightaway on the starts, you know, trying to beat, I believe it was Bobby Unser into the first corner and almost lost it. But fortunately, I haven't.
Gordy, let's talk about the race itself. You battled with everybody, and it looks like you were having fun.
Well, Paul, I sure wasn't having fun for the first 150 laps. My car really wasn't working that well. I think it was about a lap 155 when we came in for a pit stop and changed tires, and we got everything right. And then I was able to go out and run from 196 to 198 well enough to stay just ahead of Rick. And it really felt good to me. I got a lot more confidence in the car at that time. I could run through the corners, you know, almost flat out. It was much easier to run that way than it was the first 150 miles or laps.
Gordy, I think Roger Penske has a question for you.
Gordy, I just want to congratulate you on a great race. I know we've had a great rivalry going between our two teams, and Rick said you drove a clean race. He tried to get under you there in the first turn on the last lap, but he said there wasn't much room, and I think you drove a great race, and you're a good winner.
Well, thank you, Roger. I sure appreciate that. You know, I had to really, I know I was running low on the racetrack. I had to run that way. I was running that way before Rick ever caught me. A lot of times I had to run all forward below the line because each lap, after the 190th lap, I just kept, the car kept pushing worse and worse each lap, and I just had to run down low to allow myself enough room coming out of the corner, because even at times I had to get back out of the throttle coming out of the corners, and when you have to do that nowadays, you just don't pick it back up that fast.
Well, congratulations to you and Jim McGee and Pat Patrick and George Ewing. I think it's a great win, and we're going to look for it at Milwaukee.
Well, thank you, Roger, and I think we're going to have a lot of competition between the two of us all year long.
Gordy, we've got your Borg-Warner trophy sitting right here in the studio. We're going to keep it a little while longer. Congratulations again. I know this is a very important win to you personally, especially so because your mom is so seriously ill up in Michigan. We know that you probably want to dedicate this race to her, and we hope that she does better. Congratulations. Beautiful race today.
Thank you very much, Paul, and I sure would like to dedicate this to my mother.
Gordon Johncock, live from his victory celebration. Didn't sound like they were celebrating too much out there. They'll probably put him in a room just alongside where they can keep everybody well disciplined. The rest of them might be not be in as good a shape as Gordy. They realigned the cars and they were ready for the race itself. We'll be back with that story right after this.
When it comes to buying gasoline, I'm really two different guys. I use Amoco self-serve when I want to save money, and when I want service, Amoco full serve. Both have Amoco's problem-solving gasolines, but Amoco also has tires, tune-ups, and batteries, oil changes, credit cards, and accessories. Service from the driveway to service on the highway. Whether you want self-serve or full serve, Amoco takes care of both of you.
Steady Eddie Barnes needs a .8 to make him the best darn dart player in the county. Looks like a stroll-light night.
Looks like a stroll-light night. Looks like a stroll-light night. When things are going right. Looks like a stroll-light night. Looks like a stroll-light night.
Stroll Light, a great tasting beer that doesn't fill you up.
Looks like a stroll-light night. When good times come along.
In today's world, there's not much you can rely on.
I think I'm going to have to send for a part for this.
Where's the part?
Japan.
Ooh. Japan?
But at Domino's Pizza, we promise a hot, nutritious pizza made with 100% pure dairy cheese. We promise free delivery and fast 30-minute service to your door. And when we promise...
Domino's Pizza delivers.
Domino's Pizza delivers. Domino's Pizza.
Get tough for
Protect your car with Meguiar's lifetime polysealant system. Tough protection from polymer technology and 50 years of professional car wax experience. Meguiar's, a blend of tough polymers, expensive waxes, and silicones. Get Meguiar's Deep Shine in one easy step. A shine so tough, we dare to give you a guarantee for the life of your car. Meguiar's in liquid or paste.
Well, we're back now with Roger Penske, our racing expert, and we've seen a lot, but we still haven't seen the race itself. So let's begin. The race lined up 29 cars, not 33. 4 are out before they even take the green flag. The clock has not been started, so they still have an excellent opportunity to run for the record. The field pulling away very rapidly, and they went through this part quickly. They didn't give too much warning about when they were actually going to start. Here comes A.J. Foyt and Rick Mears around. The green flag in the hands of starter Dwayne Sweeney. He checks the alignment. Rows still widely separate.
Really
the green flag's out.
But the entire field, look at it there, was really not in order as it has been in a number of years. I don't know why, maybe some of the inexperience in the back, but I know I told Rick at the start, let's just go down easy, and if Foyt wants to make a run for it, let's sit back and try to let him tow us, and that's exactly what happened.
A wide separation, as you pointed out, in that field, Roger Penske. And look at A.J. Foyt. No question, he was running to his 5th victory. He also needed 91 laps in the lead to match the oldest record in Speedway history, and that's Ralph De Palma's record for leading laps. So Foyt was out and running just as fast as he could. A.J. Foyt led the first several laps of the race and did them at record time and speed. Here's Foyt around for lap number 1. And Rick is staying right in there, but was Rick's intention to catch him?
Well, really, Paul, our strategy was today to try to run out front comfortably or up with the leaders. And here Foyt had a great start, and obviously he's a pro. Well, I'm sure he wanted to be out there and show people how well he could run. He ran into some trouble later in the race, but we were just trying to stay with whoever was leading or lead it comfortably. Obviously, we didn't do it exactly right at the end.
While A.J. Foyt was setting records, Jose Lee Garza was still having more trouble with his month of May. The protege, the student, if you will, of Bobby Unser, right off the start, raised his hand. Car 55 had serious problems.
That's a shame. I know Bobby worked hard and that whole crew did. Jose Lee did so well last year, and this is the sophomore jinx, I guess they call it, but I'm sure he'll be back.
So Jose Lee Garza out of the race early on, and boy, when he walked back through that pit area, look at Bobby. Bobby isn't happy. And Garza, just as dejected as can be, looked down as he walked back, and he was frustrated. It had been a very long month of May for him. And then the duels began, the first of a series of duels that saw 16 different lead changes throughout the afternoon. In the early laps, Foyt was in the lead. He was staying just ahead of Rick Mears, and Mears was pacing behind him. They got their way through the back markers in the field very, very well. I was impressed with not only the way they were able to move through traffic, but the back markers seemed pretty good about it.
I talked with Rick, Paul, and he said that everyone was pretty courteous today. A lot of the fellows not with as much experience, maybe as some of the drivers wanted, but all in all, I think everyone realized there were some faster cars on the track, and when you're running, there's a fire there.
That's Jeff Brabham.
I guess he blew his engine. That's a shame. I know he's done a terrific job. His father, Grant, ran the first rear-engine Cooper Climax here, and I think you're going to see a lot of Jeff in the future.
And, of course, his father, Jack Brabham, 3-time world driving champion, was right there in the pits watching. Look at this action, and look at, as we see Mears come by in second place as he's in his duel, there is John Cock constantly filling up the back end of that car. Now look at John Cock, slingshot to the inside, and John Cock pulls alongside Mears. We saw this throughout the day. Drag racing down to the straightaway, and John Cock tucks into second place behind A.J. Foyt and just ahead of Rick Mears.
People talk about stock car racing running close. I think these fellows at over 200 miles an hour really did a great job with A.J., Gordy, and Rick running together, and Tom Sneva in there most of the race as close as possible.
But now we pick up just a little later on in the race, actually at lap 36. Rick Mears has now begun a battle with A.J. Foyt. Again, a tremendous duel. There's Foyt in the orange and white number 14. There's Rick right behind him.
This, as I told you earlier, was a strategy, Paul. There he goes out slingshots out around AJ. I don't know whether he's going to get by him here. I haven't seen this shot before. Yes, he does. The traffic might have hindered Foyt a little bit, and Rick goes down in the apron. It seemed the faster cars today ran down on the apron in order to get by some of the slower cars. It seemed to be the line because maybe the racetrack was a little slippery.
And then we had this problem. Tony Bentonhausen, something happened to the right rear tire right on the main straightaway.
What happened here, Paul, the half shaft broke, and when you have a drive of the car, both wheels are turning, and one of the drive shaft breaks, it turns the car into the wall. And Tony did a good job really saving this car. He'd had some problems with this earlier in the month, and these are some of the design problems we get in these cars as we go through the month of May.
Tony Bentonhausen climbed out of the car. He was uninjured, and we're thankful for that. In fact, today was really safe with regard to injuries. There weren't any. But the car badly damaged, and the Provimi Veal team will now have to do some work on it to get ready. Now we had a battle for second developing, and it was Mears sitting in third place as he was racing with Gordon Johncock once again.
You can see Rick down under Gordy there. Gordy said earlier that he wasn't handling that well, and I can see that he maybe had a stagger wrong in his tires and was not able to keep up with Rick in that stage of the race. Rick is here trying to put a beeline on Tom Sneaver. Sneaver picked up the speed. I was amazed. They were running in this segment, I think, well over 195 miles an hour. I saw a couple laps that we ran over 200, almost 201 miles an hour, and this was during the chasing of Sneaver running together. So there was a number of cars that were capable of winning this race today, obviously, other than just our cars who people thought maybe had an edge. It didn't look that way during most of the race.
Now, Sneaver was out in front as a result of the series of pit stops. He picked up the lead. Now, here is Mears. He sets Sneaver up. He did this very successfully a number of times. He used the draft and pushed past him in the first turn.
And you can see he ran down. The first turn seemed to be the place people were passing where they could come off a 4 with a good shot and then come down the straight and run under in turn 1. This seems to be the key place to pass. Rick took off from here, and I was fairly comfortable, as you do get every once in a while as we started to pull out. In fact, at one point, we pulled out about 8 or 9 seconds on Tom, and I felt that that was going to be a pretty comfortable lead for us, but it didn't last too long.
So 59 laps are now history, and I especially liked watching Rick because he would get in the draft, that area of vacuum behind the car, but he was so skillful, he had to still keep airflow over his own car, and he would just keep one side of the car out in the airflow so that the wings would work. He does it very well.
Well, actually, that car in the front is like a snowplow. It's pushing the air away. Then you can come up underneath him and pull out to make that pass, and you need that downforce when you go in the corner. You want to make that turn and have your wings in the clear air before you enter the corner. If you don't, the car will understeer and go out towards the wall.
Then the situation developed in the second turn. Danny Ongaias, who last year had that terrible wreck in the third turn, came back, was running well, in fact, led one lap, and then this happened. He lost control.
And it's Ongaias.
I think Danny had a wheel bearing failure on this car from what the mechanic said after the race. I'm not sure. It's just the word that I had, Paul. It's unfortunate. Here's a great guy, a great driver. Here's Gordy coming in the pits. Rick is in.
Now here's a very key pit stop. This is the first of a series that is about to develop for A.J. Foyt. Rick comes out. Foyt's crew was standing by and ready, and now Foyt, who has run very well throughout the first portion of the race, begins to have trouble. Here Foyt is coming in. Now when they hooked up to the race car, the new valve assembly did not work properly, and he did not get a full load of fuel.
What really happened, Paul, there's an O-ring that seals the fuel in the car, in the fuel cell. That O-ring was cocked, and I saw the car when I went out of the pits. The fuel was coming out of actually the entry where you put the fuel in the car. It wasn't anything to do with the nozzle itself. They came back in and were able to fix that. It's unfortunate. I think Foyt is some kind of guy who drove around with that fuel flying. Probably got on him, and it's pretty burning once you get it on yourself. And then he had a problem, I think, with his
here he is
gearbox.
again. He's coming in. Now, as you pointed out, fuel has been dumped on him, and they are trying to put water or anything else they can put in there to help A.J. out. Reaching down into the cockpit. He is not on fire, but methanol, there's some water being poured in, certainly can be irritating to the skin. Now this is the second time around. You can imagine that Foyt is not very pleased with this situation. And then Foyt goes out again, and Foyt comes in. once again.
I'm not sure why he came in. Evidently this time he had his gearbox locked in one gear and couldn't get it out from what I understand.
As you and I said last night, on the march, the gearbox may be the Achilles heel. And it certainly showed to be that. They're, again, trying to wash fuel off the car, try to keep it off Foyt, out again, in again. Here is Foyt now with his last stop. He locks it up, tries to get stopped in his pits, sitting out a little far.
This was just a tough day for A.J. He ran so well at the beginning. He gets out of his car.
Now look at him.
And he actually, you know, he's a great mechanic in his own way, and I think was going to start to fix that car himself. You can see him dejected after running so well at the beginning, Paul. It's a shame, and a guy that I respect. Everybody in the garage area does. He's a great driver and a mechanic, and I'm sorry that he had a problem like he did today.
You know, I'll have to say this about A.J. When he got out of the car, you know, I don't think there's any reporter in the world that would really want to go up and say, A.J., we'd like to do an interview with you. But our Lou Palmer on the radio network did just that, and A.J. gave him an extensive, a polite, a nice answer. Lou followed him back toward the garage area and got a second one. So A.J. at the beginning of the month said that he is mellowed a little. It just may be true. It's too bad that he did not have a higher finish for his 25th anniversary. We'll be back with more right after this. Begins a battle with Rick Mears. John Cock is second, Mears is third, and there comes John Cock just screaming through, but Mears is right behind there. Look at Mears duck under.
He ran right down on the apron there. I said earlier that the cars seem to... This is a battle for first. Gordy leading, Rick right behind him. I think that's Pancho Carter that just passed, too. He ran very well today, Paul.
Well, Tom Sneva is actually in first place. John Cock is in second. Mears is in third, but Mears is in hot pursuit. And Mears, for saying earlier that he wanted to race in the last 100 miles or so, was doing some pretty serious racing during segments like this. Here he comes after John Cock for second place.
Again, slingshotting down. There he got 2 wheels, 4 wheels ahead of Gordy, and Gordy gave him the track. This is what you have to do when you're up next to the driver of the car that you're passing. If you don't have a full wheel ahead of him, he's going to chop you off, and that's what Gordy and many of the pros do that, and that intimidates the driver trying to pass, Paul, and I'll tell you, you're very, very careful before you stick your nose in. Here you can see Rick in the lead with Gordy and Tom Sneva now in third place. Rick started to pull away here. Again, he said when he got into clean air without the wings losing the air from the car in front, he could run pretty quick, and he ran steadily in the 95 to 98 category.
Here's Rick Mears, and by the way, John Cock paid quite a compliment to Mears, I thought. He said that of all the people on the racetrack he'd like to go wheel-to-wheel with, Rick Mears was certainly one of them. Here comes Tom Sneva around John Cock, and we thought at that time, because you see that Pancho Carter is sitting there, and Pancho will move past John Cock. We thought the day was probably over for Gordy.
Well, again, at this time during the race, Gordy's stagger might have been off. He said his car wasn't right. Here's Tom coming in for a fuel stop. These are very, very key today. Here's Rick coming in.
Watch your crew and see if there was a way to remember it.
Just a fuel stop, checking the tires. Lap 127. Here's Gordy coming in. Here they're changing 3 tires, and this is what put Gordy back on the track. You can see they changed the left side and the right rear and changing the front, and they got the stagger right, and this probably is what put Gordy back into a real fine handling position with his car. Throwing a little water there, they might have been giving Gordy a drink there. Obviously, a little water at that time during the race might give him a little pep.
Well, George Huning and the crew did a marvelous job of analyzing what was causing Gordy to go a little bit slower and made a change. Here we see the Whittington car out picking up the Hodgson sponsorship, and the yellow flag comes out because of this incident and slows the race once again. And Gordon John Cock now has an opportunity to close up and get back into the competition. And you mentioned the pit stop strategy. It really paid off throughout the day. Everybody was working it pretty well, though.
Well, as soon as that flag goes yellow, you have to get in the pits, because if you don't, someone can pick a lap up, or you end up at the back of the field. And this is when it's dangerous, when you're running so fast and you've got to catch Gordy, who might be leading the pack, or Tom Sneva. you must go in at the right time. So you'll see Gordy and most of these drivers, when it goes yellow, Paul, they pull in immediately, and I think we tried to do that most of the day.
So now we're seeing that Tom Sneva is running strong, and Rick Mears certainly running strong. And Gordon Johncock is now ready to come back and make a charge again. He had fallen back through the field, and now with a change of tires, his handling resumes once again, and so we go back to the action. Because here is the action with Tom Sneva out in front and Gordon Johncock in second place. Most of the other cars have dropped off the leader lap now. At this time in the race, only 4 cars sitting on the leader lap. Sneva, Johncock, Mears, and Pancho Carter. And there is Sneva giving the car a real pitch, and he was throwing that march around a bit today. And then suddenly Danny Sullivan into the wall, coming off of the 4th turn. He just lost it right in the apex of the turn, slid up, slapped the wall, and everybody heads for the pits, a key stop.
You can see this, Rick, following Tom in, and this is a very important time to make a good stop, because this will put you, there he is, he passes Tom in the pits, and there's Rick going around a slower car. We come in, and at this point, we're changing the right front tire and also the right rear. A very quick stop, Paul, and out ahead of Sneva. Now, here we passed. There's Rick getting a little bit sideways.
Boy, the crowd loved that.
Sure. This is how sometimes you can pass a driver in the pits and not on the racetrack. Here's Sneva still in the pits. Evidently, they had a problem with their fuel nozzle, didn't cock it, and thought that they were flowing fuel and didn't. They were in for almost 54 seconds. Now they're pushing Tom to get going. These marches had problems with their gearboxes, and I understand that most of them ran without first gear, and that's why they had trouble getting out of the pits. That might have been one of the reasons AJ ended up with a problem with his gearbox. But here's Tom going out through the apron onto the track.
One of the rookies, rookie, of course, a semantic term, really, because this rookie happened to have been on the World Championship Formula One team for the past couple of years, Hector Rabake, and small turbocharger fire developing at the back of his car. They gave it a blast with the CO2 bottles and got it out pretty quickly.
I think the Speedway should be commended, the job that they did this year in preparing for pit fires, the water hoses. All of the fire people were in real fine fire suits, and everybody was heads up, and I think that's why we had a fine, clean race.
As they run under the yellow, I should tell you that Hector Rabake was penalized 2 laps during the running because of passing under the yellow. He apparently did not understand what the rule was, so still some question there, though that may have been a language problem. Rick Mears is now out in front, but here comes the charge of Gordon Johncock.
Here they are running wheel to wheel. I'm not sure right now. They've got a full load of fuel, and Gordy seemed to have a little more speed. Here he slingshots Rick coming off of 2, and he just got in ahead of Rick, and then we ran like this for almost 40 laps. Rick said he could catch him quite easily in the corners, but down the straight, Gordy would have just a little bit more power, and I've got to give that Sonny Meyer a vote of confidence on that engine job.
They did have a very powerful engine, very in those very short terms, too, but at the end of a straightaway, it seemed that Gordy could pick up 4 or 5 feet on Rick Mears about any time he wanted to. Then we continued with the race, and we'll continue with the 500 right after this.
Get tough. Protect your car with Meguiar's lifetime polysealant system. Tough protection from polymer technology and 50 years of professional car wax experience. Meguiar's, a blend of tough polymers, expensive waxes, and silicones. Get Meguiar's deep shine in one easy step. A shine so tough, we dare to give you a guarantee for the life of your car. Meguiar's in liquid or paste.
You can beat the heat by calling this man now. Your Bryant Air Conditioning dealer. Bryant Deluxe Air Conditioning means high energy efficiency at an affordable price. Saves you money year after year, quietly and dependably. It really does pay to call your Bryant dealer.
Call Quiet Ralph Allen at the Bryant Allen Company for Bryant Quiet Line Deluxe Central Air Conditioning. To call Quiet Ralph, just dial 35-RALPH.
Wendy, ain't no reason to go any place else. We've got a salad bar so complete. You can eat just what you want to eat. So fresh you can't resist temptation. The only limits are in
Discover Gold. Discover Gold, a plug of mild chewing, fresh tasting RJ Gold.
Introducing new RJ Gold from RJ Reynolds. Mild loose leaf tobacco compressed into a plug and put into a pouch to keep it fresher longer.
Discover Gold. Discover Gold, a plug of mild chewing, fresh tasting RJ Gold.
RJ Gold, the mild chewing plug in a pouch.
Discover Gold.
The beautiful thing about the 66 running of the 500 was that there were battles all day long, and most of the passing that occurred on the racetrack. Here is Gordon Johncock. Now in front of him is Johnny Rutherford, who is a lap down at this time. Rick Mears is right behind him. And again, they use the low groove to string their way past the slower cars.
Both cars passed Rutherford on the apron.
Now, at this point in the race, the whole strategy of the pit stops is becoming crucial. Here they come in. Here is Rick Mears coming to his stop. Pick up for fuel. Mears in. Now, we'll look in a second at something else that happened on this stop. We won't let it get by us. Gordon Johncock comes in. Here's Mears burning those tires as he comes out once again. He has a full load of fuel now. Gordon Johncock comes out. And just a few laps later, under the yellow, Gordon Johncock comes back in, tops off for fuel. That will become a critical pit stop just a few laps later in the race. At this point in the race, Roger, Rick, what is his design?
Well, at this critical point in the race, we're giving Rick the speeds, the number of laps to go, and he knows that Gordy is going to be tough. But again, probably there'll be another yellow, and you've got to be ready to go for that last trophy dash. And we ran the last, I think, 40 laps under the green, which we really didn't expect to.
Now, there are two important points about this double series of pit stops. One is that Johncock did come back in, just topped off the car. In fact, their crew said, Roger, that they were surprised that you didn't do the same thing as soon as they did.
Well, we came in actually a lap before Gordy did, and we used a timed stop. And we just stayed in. We had a 19-second stop. We thought the fuel would flow. We had a chart, in fact, trying to be so technical, that we would flow 1.8 gallons per second. We flowed 2.4, and actually we filled the car up. McGee was sharp. He saw us in the pits a little bit longer, kept Gordy in 3 or 4 seconds less, and that really was what got Rick behind.
Did you put too much fuel in the car?
We filled it up, which we didn't need to.
Didn't need that at all. There's another aspect about that, and that is that as they were coming into that pit stop, Rick Mears got bottled up behind a slower car. The slower car belonged to Herm Johnson. Now, of course, Rick was absolutely on the charge at that second. He's simply trying to get into the pits, make his stop, and get out just as fast as he can. And Herm Johnson was right in front of him. We asked Mears after the race what happened.
He never did pull over in a slow lane. He stayed in the middle, and when he finally got to his pit, he put the brakes on and stopped still in the middle. And I hit him with the left front on his right rear. And that really knocked us down time-wise. It probably knocked 4 or 5 seconds, or added 4 or 5 seconds to our pit stop. And had we have had that 4 or 5 seconds, we'd probably had another maybe 2 laps to 3 laps to work on Gordy at the end. But we didn't get it, and that's racing.
I think I heard some of Herm Johnson's crew say that Rick was hurrying too much, but Rick said he was in the fast lane.
Well, when you come down that pit lane, you're supposed to leave the fast lane open. When Gordy came in on the next lap, he actually went to the left of the slow car coming in and drove through the pits. This is a chancy maneuver, but Gordy got away with it. This is the time when you have to come in probably as fast, 100 miles an hour to get down. Every second counts, and obviously, when we went back on the racetrack, we were 10 seconds behind Johncock, and I said, boy, Rick, I think we blew the race for you.
And the front wing is now damaged, which that's that little dent affects handling.
Well, the wing, I looked at it when he came in. He asked me on the radio. He said, check the left front wing. I said, it looks good. I could see the tire mark right on the leading edge, but it was not damaged. So the way he started to run, I don't think there was anything wrong with the wing. It's just unfortunate losing the time with Johnson, and then our being slow in the pits put Rick behind. And as he said, one more lap all we needed, but as Gordy knows, there's only 200 laps in this race.
The crowd They were on their feet. I think they were on their feet for the last 50 miles. Let's look at the home stretch, because here they come on the run. It's Gordon Johncock. He has a lead at this point. But now Rick is beginning to eat away at that lead. At first we thought maybe Gordy knew what the pad was and he was slowing down deliberately. That was not true. He was running for all he was worth, but running just as hard was Rick Mears in the Gould Charge. And he was now beginning to catch Johncock. Here's Johncock on the backstretch, and Mears is closing. In fact, the second to last lap in the race, there's Johnny Rutherford with an engine problem. He had a line running off to an overflow, finally go, and Johnny Rutherford was out of this 500-mile race, so he's into the pits. But Rick Mears was running laps. I believe the officials had him at a lap at about 199 miles an hour. Here is Tom Sneva having his problem going to the finish, and this, of course, gave a real opportunity to Pancho Carter, who was in fourth at the time. Sneva was in third. Sneva pulled a little bit lower on the racetrack, but stayed out. Nonetheless, Pancho Carter got by and moved into third place, and Tom Sneva stayed out ultimately to pick up fourth. But now the battle is between these two men, Gordon Johncock and Rick Mears, side by side with 1 lap to go.
That's the white flag. I can see Rick almost got a nose ahead of him, but didn't, and Gordy moved Rick right down on the apron. And once you make that move, you've got to wait for another lap, and obviously, Paul, there wasn't another one up. There's Gordy all the way down because his car was understeering. He'd slide right back up into the wall in order to keep that car up to speed.
You've got to give Mears an E for effort on this one, because watch what he does. He pulls right into the back of Johncock's car, sets up on these last 2 turns.
You can see Gordy again down on the apron because he needed to widen that turn, and Rick is right under him, but just not enough.
Here they come. It's the home stretch. They're closing on the 500th mile. The checkered flag's in the hand of Dwayne Sweeney. Mears makes a try. 15/100ths of a second behind after 500 miles. That is a record finish at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The previous record was 2.1 seconds, and I don't know about you, but I was going hoarse. It was terrific.
Well, Paul, obviously, I sat there in the pits and wondered, what had we done? Rick drove a great race. Some people would be very happy with second. I wasn't today because I knew that we probably could have given Rick that little extra time that he needed, and I said to him, I said to the crew, you fellas have done a super job, but we maybe let Rick down in the pits, and that's one place we've usually done pretty well.
So Gordon Johncock, the winner of the 66th running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. You saw him live a little bit earlier on the program, but there was the celebration that was occurring in Victory Lane immediately after the race. And there's the Borg-Warner Trophy and the wreath. And boy, what a celebration it was, too. That crew was just as static. Security, by the way, on the Victory Lane was very, very tight. Even some of those people, our own photographer with credentials, couldn't make it in there when they finally got Gordy up in. But Gordy was just as static, and so were his sponsors, STP Corporation. Lou Palmer, our announcer in Victory Lane for the radio network, leaned right in and got the longest interview I have ever heard from Gordon Johncock. It also is important, too, because this is Gordy's first win at a full 500 miles. Again, 333 miles was the distance that he ran in 1973, the rain-shortened race. That was the race that took 3 days and was filled with tragedy for the entire month, and Gordy was not pleased with that and wanted to win. After the race, we talked with Gordy.
Said the car really was performing beautiful from lap 155 to lap 190, and then the car, evidently the left rear started growing a little bit, and the car got into a push, and I was just losing speed every lap because coming out of the corner I'd have to get out of the throttle to keep from driving it into the wall. It was an exciting one, naturally I'm glad it ended up the way it did, and I guess it was the closest race in the history of the Speedway. It really would be nice if we could have every race that close, as long as I won.
So Gordon Johncock, the winner of the 66th running of the Indianapolis 500. The official order of finish, 15/100ths of a second back, Rick Mears in second place. Pancho Carter with a fine drive, finishing up in third. Tom Sneva with an engine to let go toward the end. In fourth place, Al Unser. Bobby Hillen's crew has been struggling a long time, and that was a nice finish for Al Unser in fifth place. Don Whittington in sixth. Jim Hickman, the highest placing rookie, coming home in seventh place in his Stroh's March. I know Jim was happy about that. That'll probably help him along on the voting that'll take place tomorrow for the AFNB Rookie of the Year. And behind Jim Hickman, Johnny Rutherford, and then Herm Johnson and Howdy Holmes, the official order of finish of the 500. Roger, this race finished and ran the way I thought the season would have started back at Phoenix. I thought that all the cars were coming into an equal status now. Has it occurred here with Indianapolis, and are we going to see this kind of excitement the rest of the season?
Well, hopefully, Paul, we can get some sort of an edge going into Milwaukee. As I told Gordy earlier, we're going to be after him there. I think that the Patrick crew has made substantial progress during the month of May. A lot of other cars have. I think that the March cars did quite well. I know they had some engine problems, some gearbox problems, but the rest of the season is going to be tough for everyone. You're going to have to be on your toes, and I can assure you that Mario and Kogan, both of them, they have some hard feelings today, are going to be guys to beat too.
Of course, they will be going to your racetrack for the second Michigan 500, which will be live here on Channel 13. Next season, of course, we'll have most of the championship season live and on tape on Channel 13. But do you think that you can match this 500?
Well, you can't ever match the Indy 500. We're going to sure have a race this year. Hopefully we'll have no fires. We're going to take some of the same safety precautions that were taken at the Speedway. I think they gave us a lot to look at.
Last year, we wouldn't have thought of asking this question. We have to this year. Any hint of protest from anybody? Was there any problem with anyone?
Well, I haven't heard it, and I'm sure that we're going to not have it tomorrow when someone puts up a piece of paper and said you were first, but now you're second. Hector Rabaki, of course, was penalized 2 laps for a yellow flag infraction. But overall, I was happy with the officiating. There was some trouble in the pits with a number of people that might have caused some of us some problem. But overall, Paul, it was a good month of May. I just want to pass on my sympathy to Gordon Smiley's family and Bob Fletcher and their crew. But Gordy Johncock's a great winner. He's tried hard. He's probably the toughest, hardest driving man out there, and today he got his chances in Victory Circle, and we'll be back next year.
Speaking of Fletcher's car, George Snyder in Bob Fletcher's Cobra Tire Special picked up the USAC Gold Crown Championship as a result of his finish in the 500-mile race today. So the Borg-Warner Trophy now will have another face, not a new one, but another one. Gordon Johncock will be added down here at the bottom, and we will begin the whole process once again to determine who will win now the 67th running of the...